Hi everyone and welcome back to the top 8 double elimination bracket from the Rochester Regionals that went down on May the 30th of 2015. This is Tim today with a solo cast for game number 9 in the double elimination bracket, which features Ben on the left playing Kate and Dien on the right playing Replicating Perfection. Ben, of course, is from the last round. He just beat Sean, so these players are both undefeated at this point. And whoever wins here is heading out of the final. Whoever loses heads down to the loser's bracket and has to try to battle their way back up. And apologies for having another Kate versus RP game right in a row here. But actually, these were the only two players between the last game and this game, the only two Kates and the only two Replicating Perfection in the top 8, which I was very surprised by. We actually had a pretty diverse spread up in the top 8. On the runner side, there was 3 Criminals, 2 Andys, 1 Leela, and then we had a couple Kates, a couple Maxes, and a Valencia, which I was not really expecting. Net Red Eyes had come out just 2 days before this tournament, and it was legal, but enough people hadn't had time to play with it. I don't think that Arnak wasn't as popular as they've become in the past few weeks. And then on the Corp side, there were just, like I said, 2 Replicating Perfection, a couple Blue Sun, a couple Engineering the Future, and then a Titan and a Near Earth Hub. And so it looks like the guys are all shuffled up here, getting ready to go. And Ben looking at a hand that's got a few SMCs, a voice pad, indexing, which is one of those cards I know that's always kind of on the bubble for these prepaid Kate decks. I had it in there at one point and ended up taking it out, but I know a lot of people swear by it. And then Dien on the left looked like he had some assets in hand. Attempting to break Ben's hand, cripple him before the game begins. And both players keeping what they got. So it looks like Dien is pretty light on ice here. He's just got a crick and then a bunch of assets and agendas. So he's going to have to try to find a way out of this without being too obvious that he's at least somewhat flooded at this point. So now does Ben go for the indexing or does he try for HQ? Yes, he goes for the indexing. Click 1 indexing. That's always a pretty good thing. And it looks like we got a Jackson, a Sundew, Caprice, and I think that's an Alt Art Eli down at the bottom. And likely, yeah, looks like the Caprice went on top, so go in and trash her on the double. Oh, and he pops a Jackson immediately, so instead, Ben gets a random card. So I actually might give him a chance at an agenda, but denies the kill of the Caprice, which ends up being a very crucial card in this matchup. Because Kate's eventually going to get just tons of money and access to whatever breakers, and so Replicating Perfection really has to rely on Caprice to attempt to score at any point. And couldn't quite see the card he accessed. So that was just click 2. And drops an SMC. Alright, and Dien desperately hoping for some ice here, I would imagine. Okay, so he gets a Cortex lock. And the crick on Archives. Still leaving HQ open, and there is a Future Perfect in there, we know, so daring Ben to come in, I suppose. Okay, let me see. And Ben goes and grabs a Data Sucker. So we saw that he had the Parasite in hand, and he's got a free Central Server to hammer on for a little while, so get the Data Sucker, get that loaded up, and then you go for those instant Parasites to kill ice as soon as they're rezzed. Okay, voice pad is in, and Dirty Laundry's onto HQ. So gets Data Sucker, takes a peek at a card, and it's a business show. And then goes and gets rid of the Clinic. So Dien is in a pretty rough spot here, and again drawing just more assets, which once your centrals are iced up, you'd love to see, but at this point he really wants to see some ice, or a Jackson to filter through all of this garbage. He unfortunately had to waste the first Jackson right away and stopping an indexing run. So likely going for either the boot camp or the business show install here. Oh, it looks like he has a celebrity gift. So plays the celebrity gift, holds back the future perfect, and shows him a bunch of assets. And, okay, so still wide open. It still gets Ben data suckers, so it seems like running HQ makes sense. Ben carefully considering here. So this is always, in this matchup, one of those things is you don't want to blow your load, so to speak, too early as Kate. So you want to be putting pressure on RP, but if you get behind in money, then it allows them to set up very quickly, because if they get that first Nisei score, then things suddenly become very difficult. Okay, so Dien has a little bit of time here. He's found a piece of ice, but it's unfortunately Excalibur, which does nothing for him yet. It's a great piece of ice in RP. I know initially a lot of people were playing it as kind of an archives deterrent, but I think it works a lot better on your remote, where your Caprice and your Nisei tokens are preventing a score. And so I think it's a very solid one of in RP. So dirty laundering into HQ. We know there's still a couple agendas in there. And some data sucker tokens, so but he sees an Excalibur. So Dien lucking out here so far. And of course, you've got to be afraid that a lot of RP is running Cortex Lock, which I think is the card we saw go in front of R&D, so you can't just smack into things willy-nilly. And we see a daily business show, which gets rid of, especially in this case where he's obviously not drawing ice. You want to deny him those kind of draws. Okay, so toll booth. So toll booth goes on HQ. And Sundew in the remote, naked. And Dien sitting on plenty of cash, 17 credits. So he can res all of this ice if he wants to. Okay, let's see. Second SMC coming in and running R&D, which is a Cortex Lock. So at this point, does he just take the 1 damage? Do you hunt something up? Looks like he's just taking the damage. That's why... Oh, that's a rough loss, though. That's why Cortex Lock ends up being kind of an iffy card, I think, a lot of times, especially when you're expecting a lot of Shaper, because they'll just have those SMCs out. If they lose a card, they don't really care. They clone chip it right back. But it is a very heavy deterrent against criminals face-checking into your ice, which, surprisingly, there were a lot of criminals in the field today. I did not see that one coming. Yeah, I think in Swiss I played... My first 3 rounds, I played Anarch and Jinteki all 3 rounds, and then after that, I saw a mix of Shaper and a few Wayland as well. Okay. Quality timing up. Looking for likely some economy at this point. Some multi-access perhaps. Gets the Astrolabe. And okay, and so yeah, here's the issue with Cortex Lock is he's full on memory, so Cortex Lock does nothing. So R&D is completely free. And we know Dien is pretty light on ice right now, so that may continue being free for a little while. And our good friend Crick over there on Archives. Another one of those cards that's come out that has just continued to make Replicating Perfection an even bigger powerhouse on the Corp side. The RP was one of those IDs that when it first came out was almost universally panned. And then especially once Honor and Profit came out, a lot of the key cards came in, and then ever since then they've been getting little bits of ice and economy and assets that really help. So it seems like just continuing to check R&D is probably a good call at this point. Costs him no money, gets him a data sucker, and grabs one of those Niseis. Going again. Trashes Caprice. Things are looking pretty rough here for Dien. But he's, again, it's RP. They're never out of the game. They get one agenda score, and suddenly things are very ugly. Oh, this is unfortunate. Grabs, I think that's a Hades fragment. Which is something I know a lot of people have started putting into Replicating Perfection. I'm not a huge fan of it because it's not the Future Perfect, essentially. But I think a few people have started switching either some of the NAPDs for more three-pointers or swapping one of the Future Perfects for a Hades. So Ben is suddenly at 5 points. He's only on 5 credits, but again, R&D is a free run. And nothing really showing on Dien's side of the board that he has to be nervous about, so Ben in a pretty comfortable position here. And Dien considering popping that boot camp likely for, I would guess, a Jackson at this point. And he is diving with it. Let's see what we get. And he does get Jackson. So yeah, he's got to draw through at this point, try to get something to cover R&D, and then perhaps he has a Sundew in hand, so he should be set up on Econ fairly soon, but he really needs to secure R&D or the game is just going to be over too quickly. And here comes our friend Jackson Howard. Oh, and he gets the second Jackson, so he can filter a lot of junk out of here if he needs to. And looks like he's dumping the NAPD, which seems a good call at this point. I don't think Ben is going to be running over on Archives anytime soon. Crick is a pretty expensive piece of ice to get through on Archives. And it's Eli. Oh, that lovely, I think that was from Worlds, Eli? Either Nationals or Worlds, I don't remember, but it is very pretty. And deciding to bounce off of that. So Ben is at 5 points, but he's fairly low on money at this point. He's spent a couple dirty laundries. I think one sure gamble. Oh, and there's one of the lucky finds, so Econ coming in. And it looks like he's stim hacking over on the mental health clinic so that he can use his SMC to likely grab his Fractor. And I'm guessing it's a, yep, it is Lady, which will get through Eli for 1 credit. And again, he only needs to see 1 agenda off the top and it's game, so don't mind burning those counters down. And usually when you see Lady, you also see Scavenge along with it, so you can get the counters back, or you just uninstall it, clone chip it back with the counters. And so Lady comes out, so more ice in front of R&D, still has an SMC on the table. So again, he can get through whatever that is over there in R&D, but it'll just cost him a fair bit of money to get the breakers up. Ben on 13 credits, so if he needs, I don't know what decoder he's running. Usually it's either a few Cyber Ciphers or a Gordian Blade. Running HQ, it seems like. I think there's still a Future Perfect in there. Yes, there is still a Future Perfect in there. Okay, so side game number 1 of the game we go for here. And this would be game over if Ben hits it here. both players have ample credits, so I think this is just a pure random toss here. 0-2. So the game continues at the very least, but this will become a drain on Dien's econ, I suppose, eventually. Ben has been pretty diligent about getting in there and trashing health clinics and sundews, which is kind of a sacrifice you just have to make against replicating perfection in the early game, is just accept that you're going to waste a lot of money and time, but they eventually get better at wasting time most of the time. Okay, so Blacklist. So he plays a clone chip, and Blacklist immediately comes out, which at this point I don't think is a huge problem. I don't think that Ben actually has anything of value in his archives, so he's happy to just churn along. And we get a pup. Dirty Laundry's Blacklist. Runs Jackson. So wanting to force the agendas back into the deck so that he can likely go for a multi-access in the next couple of turns, because he knows that R&D is only costing him 3 credits to get through. And looks like some econ, and I believe that is an NAPD going back into the deck here. Can't quite see Ben's hand. I don't know if he has a Maker's Eye in there, but he does have a same old thing, so he can get back that Maker's Eye that went into the bin. And going down and running that remote, which I believe has a Caprice in the bottom of it. It's actually Ash, but it's a hell of a lot easier to get Ash now than when an agenda's in there, he's got tons of money, and things are looking ugly. Looks like he's considering, yep, interns to pop Sundew back in there. Yep, Dien has to stabilize a little bit here. He doesn't really have any way to go for an agenda play, so getting some econ back on the board, definitely a good call. And drops an upgrade in there, which I'm guessing is Caprice or Ash. So looks like a Lucky Find. Lucky Find and Parasite's the pup. So likely next turn we'll be looking for the R&D grab. But it looks like Dien unfortunately just drew the Nisei that he would have had otherwise. And Dien just crediting up and getting his Sundew money. So again, RP loves to slow the game down, get it to the point where their servers are just horror to get through, and they've got a huge stack of credits. So Dien attempting to do that even though he's very much behind the 8 ball here. And clone chips a Parasite up onto Eli. Run and burn down the Eli. So now, yeah, R&D is wide open. And it's nothing so far. We see that there is indeed a toll booth in Dien's hand, so a toll booth and a Tsurugi, I think. So likely one of those will be going on to R&D. Again, they're both pretty expensive. Okay, so he installs a clone chip and then runs, likely again hoping to Parasite down on the ice that Dien reses here. So in this position, unless, yeah, you have a Lotus Field or something like that, I'm not sure if you... Okay, it is a Lotus Field. Okay, so that is definitely a good call. And Lotus Field is one of those pieces of ice that I don't know if it's going to be better or worse now, because a lot of Anarchs are going to go to the Netrunner Eyes and Yogg, but it takes away the instant Parasite kill option. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out, whether people keep playing Lotus Field or if it gets kind of thrown to the wayside. All right, Baby jumping in. You'd like to have that a little earlier in the game, but unlike Proco, you don't suffer if you install in a late game. I'm still a big fan of Proco. It's in my Kate deck. I won't hear anyone say anything bad about it. Ooh, and another Nisei into hand, so Ben is unfortunately just missing the turns on running R&D here, but still in a very strong position, so I don't pity him at all. Okay, so Sundew is out, so that is likely one of those Niseis we just saw. So yeah, at this point you just kind of have to go for something. Ben has a fair amount of money, so he could likely get it into that server if he wanted to, but he'd have to win a side game as well as be able to break those 2 pieces of ice. So instead, running on R&D. And a side game for the win again. Here we go. Yeah, Ben commenting that Dien's luck has not been great so far. So we'll see if it holds out on the side game here. And that's the game. They both bid 1. And Ben takes the victory here. So bit of a rough game for Dien. He kept an opening hand that didn't have much ice in it, but had a fair amount of econs and assets, and it ended up punishing him. And Ben pointing out here that he's also not a fan of the Hades fragment in replicating perfection. But when it works, it's fantastic, so you can't fault him for it. So that's the game there. Ben is heading on to the winner's bracket. He'll have to sit around and wait for a bit while the loser's bracket resolves. Dien will head down. This was his first loss, so I hope he'll still be in a pretty good position in the loser's bracket. And we should have those games coming up pretty shortly. So thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.